Imagine that it's time for you to color your illustration, or even fill it in with black and white. That's okay. Color means bring some fills into your illustration. So imagine you're illustrating this calf. I'm actually stealing the theme from Andy, and I hope he's okay with that. I talked to him in office hours, so I know he's okay with that. So I'm going to show you how you do it. I'm going to start from scratch. The reason why I have already part of it done is so that this demo doesn't last too long with me doing every line. So how do you bring in the image? First and foremost, you obviously find it by taking it. You know, you go and capture it. You might have found something really important and interesting online that has all those views. We talked about the requirement for those images, right? Have 4 different views, be very clear, easy to kind of see so that you can trace it, and et cetera, et cetera. So let's say you found it. So you want to go and say File, Place. And I'm going to go and take that image of the calf that is right here and say Place. And I'm going to say Place right here. So you can see how much bigger it is, right? So I'm going to first and foremost zoom in and shrink it. I'm holding the Shift key so that it stays fairly, you know, the proportions are maintained. You know, the Shift key, that's what it does. Maintain the ratio of width and height. And now I'm going to zoom in and say, okay, I'm in good shape. Does anybody know what this cross means? Does anybody know what the cross means? You can just say no.
No.
Cool, thank you. Just wait a second because I don't want to go too fast and not give you a chance to speak up. So imagine that I want this element to be a traceable element, a traceable image. If I bring it in and I see a cross, means that this is a link to a file. And a link means is a piece of text in behind the scene in Illustrator. When you see that image, there isn't the image itself. There is a piece of text that says, go in Enrica's desktop in the folder called student so-and-so and grab the image called calf so-and-so. So there is a piece of text that tells me the path to this image. Now, every time you have a link, you cannot use this image as a template, and template is a traceable image. So let me show you how you can avoid bringing it in as a link though. If you go under place down here, do you guys see that right here you have options? So you can say, you know what, I want to actually bring it in as a template, and you could click on that. You have to first obviously browse to the image, sorry, right here. So you see, when I browse to the image, the default is link. You could actually change it. You can say, I want it as a template, or you can uncheck the link. And if you uncheck the link, that does something called embedding. Embedding means now the image actually lives inside your Illustrator file. So let me actually bring it in as embedded, and I'll show you that it doesn't have that cross, okay? I'm going to say place. And now I'm going to click, and you'll see, I'm going to zoom out because you cannot see a whole lot. But you see that this one does not have a cross, and this one does. So I recommend, if you know you want to eventually later on trace it, to bring it in as embedded. But let's say you didn't. I'm going to hit delete. You accidentally brought it in as a link. What do? So if you select it right here, you'll see that in Illustrator, you'll find on the side. Now, if you're in a prior version of Illustrator, it might be on the top right here. Oh, actually, it is on the top. Cool. It's in both places. So you can have it right here on the top, or you can choose it right here on the side. Quick actions. But if you click on embed, now the image is embedded. That is good, right? But what I told you was that I wanted to be able to trace it. And to trace an image, the ideal is to actually have it as a template. And template means the image gets grayed out and locked, right? So how do I get that? Besides, we already know, because I showed you earlier, you could go back and do File, Place again, and you could actually bring this image right now as a template directly by doing this, right? But let me show you how you also do it if you didn't do it in the first place. You can choose this image. You can go in the layers right here, create a new layer so that you have a layer to use to draw on, because I told you once you template something, it will lock it. Now I'm going to select this layer. I'm going to go in here and choose template. Now this image is grayed out and is locked, as you can see. That means the only thing I can do is draw on layer 2. And the reason why it's locked is that way it doesn't I don't risk to move it accidentally while I'm working, right? Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what did you click to template it again?
Let me undo it. You select it, go under the options in the layer palette and choose template.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, I accidentally templated the layer 2. That doesn't really do anything. Now, be aware that if you ever decide to release it from template, you can go in and choose template again, and now you're free. I want to prove something to you though, because I told you that if you have it as a file place here, if you have it as a link, so if I go and select this image and I actually have it as a link and I say place and I bring it in, notice that if I go in here, oh gosh, it allows me to template it. It used to be that it would not allow you to template it, but now it does. That is really cool. Let's see if it also embeds it at the same time. Sorry, I just noticed that if you go in the layer right now, it used to be that it wouldn't let you template a image that was linked. But now this is a new version of Illustrator, is a 2020. And I am delighted that it's actually doing it, because it's been a long time that I say shouldn't be smart enough by now. All right, so let's go in the layer again. And in that, I'm going to go in and say template. Yeah, it does it. Fantastic. So either way, but now you know at least the difference between template, embed. You know how you can bring one or the other. Remember when you go in file place, you have those cute little boxes right in there. Oops. You know why it's not letting me file place it? So right now, if I go in and say file place is grayed out. Why?
It's because you selected the layer that the image is on.
Yes. And what's the problem with that, Andy?
It's locked.
It's locked. You're awesome. Thanks. Super cool. I love thinkers. I love thinkers. Yeah, was my mistake, really. I didn't realize I was on the wrong layer. But if I go on layer 2 and I go do file place, now whatever I select right here, now I can decide if you want a link or if you want to template it. What if you don't want to template it and you don't want to link, you want to embed it? So it doesn't have the cross, lives inside of Illustrator, is not a path like it would be in a link environment. So I uncheck link. That means it does not create that piece of text that says, go grab the image inside CSC student work and blah, blah, new underscore forest underscore cap. It doesn't put a piece of text that says, go grab the image there. If I have this, that means I uncheck link and I say place, it will take the image and bring it inside of Illustrator. What is the downside?
The file is really big.
Much bigger file. Yep. What is, good job, Sarah. Thank you. What is the downside of linking, of having a link there?
If you don't have the link, you won't be able to access the image.
You're awesome. So oftentimes, after you're done with your illustration, people tend to email them to the teacher, turn them in, send them to the client. And it's really sad when you open a file in which there was a link and the person completely forgot to include it, because the first thing you see is a big piece of text that says broken link. So imagine you're sending it to a client that is paying you $100 an hour, and the first thing they see is a mistake. That's not gonna fly. Imagine you're sending it to Enrica that wants to give you those 14 points out of 14, but the first thing she sees is a broken link. How can she give you that 14 points when some other student don't have it as a broken link? How can I, be fair? But I know you guys know by now after this demo that you got to pay close attention. Now for this exercise, guys, trust me, just embed it. Don't worry, because I know you will, if you link it, you will eventually lose the link, means not turn it in. So just embed it. Now remember, after you traced it, you can also delete it. And that's why I taught you how you can go on that layer and unlock it. Because right now, if you want to delete it, you cannot even select it, right? So you would have to go in here and say untemplate first, then you select it and you hit delete. So anyway, so how do I trace this cow though, now that we know that's what I need to do? So it's up to you. And you'll see in Canvas on week 3, I'll show you in a minute how you have all these tools very well explained through different video. The brush tool, the pencil tool, the pen tool, the exercises due for Sunday is the pen tool exercise. It's really nicely done. So you choose what you want to choose. You might choose the pen tool or the pencil tool. I'm going to use the pen tool for the reason I told you in my past lectures. And how with the pen tool, you have full control on how many anchor points you do, right? So if you want to trace this cow, I obviously need to go on the drawing layer because that one is locked. So I'm going to go in the drawing layer and then I start tracing, right? And I start making my anchor points. Now, you'll see at a certain point, you realize, ouch, I have a fill and I don't want to fill because eventually it's going to block my view. How do I get rid of the fill? Now, it's not much of a problem if you just get out of your pen tool. You might say, you know what? I just realized that I need to hit enter and get out. Then I need to select my path. And right now, here I can see that it says it has no stroke and has a white fill. And that's not going to fly. So I'm going to actually click on this icon that gives me a black stroke and a white fill. And then I'm going to click on this slash that tells me, hey, look, you can decide to assign no white fill in this case. So if I have this in the front and I hit this, it will remove the fill. If I Control Z it, if I have actually the stroke in the front and I hit this, it will remove the stroke, right? Control Z it again. I'm going to actually remove the fill because once that I have the fill gone, I can see a lot better what I'm doing. So how do I connect back to this path though, right? I go back to my pen tool and I showed that in the past, but I want to show it again. You go to the very last point where the pen tool develops this beautiful little slash sign and you click and drag. And now you're basically back to exactly where you were. So that's really helpful. Now, when you get to this point, if you see that how your handles are like kind of in a tandem, they're like this, they go together. So what if you want these bunny ears handles? Means if you want handles that create kind of a point, you want to hold Option or Alt on the keyboard. Look what happens now when I hold Alt. My handles are independent. And if I do this, now the next time I create a line, it's going to be tangent to this second handle. I'm going to do it again, guys, because I feel like it's important. In fact, let me also zoom in. There we are. If you hold the space bar, guys, it will allow you to use the grabber hand, but stay within your tool. That is really cool. You never get kicked out of the tool if you hold the space bar. So what you can do here is you can click and drag. And we're good, except how do I do this turn here, right? So you kind of drag for a little bit, and it doesn't need to be too long because the longer the handle, the bigger that curve is going to be. And I don't need that big of a curve. So I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to hold Option or Alt and do this. And now I can click again and come up with something that goes down. And right now I'm actually going to be not super accurate because I'll show you eventually. I'm going to go all around. In fact, I'm going to actually hit enter because I'll show you that here I have the same exact drawing, just done a little bit more complete. I still have some stuff that is not perfectly accurate. Do you see how here this ear is a little bit too big down here? So I have the same problem right here. How do I fix it? I use my white arrow and I click and oops, Control Z. I accidentally grabbed instead of the anchor, the handle. Now I grab the anchor. You can move it like that. And if you actually go in and shorten your handles, it also tightens things up, right? Now, by the way, guys, I cannot see you on Zoom, sadly. I just see Andy and Sarah and the image for Kale. So I don't see the other 20 people. So if you need me to stop, just shout, Enrica, I need your help. Or just Enrica will do, okay? I'm sorry, but I wish I could see you raising your hand, but with the Zoom environment, it's not that easy. So here I can see that I can be more accurate also by grabbing this and moving it out, making the handle kind of go in a little bit. Same here, right? I can go in and tweak each individual point to fit my needs. Like this one, the problem I have here is the handles are so long. Let me shorten them a little bit so that that curve is not that big. Now, if I shorten it though here, you might end up with a problem up here where I need more space. So I might need an extra anchor right there, right? Command Z. Right here, there's kind of like a bump There's a bump that comes out and then it goes back in. So I don't have enough anchors. I'm very concerned all the time to do minimum anchor point, and sometimes I make too few. Now, if you're doing the symbol though, sometimes it's actually really nice that you simplify the shape oftentimes. Now notice that I might want to round this up. You have those beautiful little element right here that allows you to round the things up. Keep that in mind too, right? But so here, if you need an extra handle, what do? Remember, under here, you can add anchor, remove anchor, or even make it into bunny ears if you need it. So make it into a sharp point. So I'm going to go in here and actually add an anchor or two, to be honest. I might need two, one before and one after the bump. Then I'm going to zoom in, go with my white arrow. Now I can shorten this a little bit, I think. I have to zoom out to see what I'm doing, really, right? I'm just kind of right now trying to guess what's the best thing to do. I'm going to zoom out. Yeah, this one is definitely not working. I need to make it much more bellied just by pulling up this. And the same here. Here I made it too small. I need to kind of pull it up a little bit. You get the point, right, guys? Are you seeing what I'm doing? I'm actually going around with the pen tool and then go in and massage my shape to be loyal to whatever I want to do. Is everybody with me so far?
Yes.
Any questions? Okay. Again, interrupt me if you have questions. I don't get offended one tiny bit. Okay. So what I wanted to do today, though, was this is a fairly simple process. It's really a matter of going in and tracing and then massaging the line. It is a little bit harder to color. And I will show you a video on coloring that Nick made in which he shows certain techniques. But he did not show what I'm showing you right now. So that's why we're kind of complementary. He shows you his ways. I show you my way. When you are proficient with the software, remember, you always have 3 or 4 ways to achieve anything. And you always have a favorite one, like the one you do all the time. I love to use this thing called live paint. Why? Because the way Illustrator think of, sorry, I was telling today, I was actually telling Andy how I get really bent on being accurate. And sometimes I cannot stop finagling with my line. And right now I'm tempted to do that again. But I told him, you know, I'll try not to. I've got to chill. So the problem with these lines is if I need to color it, I know I need to put a fill in here, right? And one easy way to do it is go on the color and click. Or go on the swatches and choose which one to do. Life is good, right? Easy peasy. But what if, just like the cow is, part of it is white. And I forgot which one is white. Let me actually remove it. Okay, the center is white. So what happens if the center is white? I do know in Illustrator it's super easy to color closed fills, right? So if you have any fill that is closed in Illustrator, I'm going to make a circle. Boom, no problem, is colored. But if I have an open fill, and let me do an open fill, this is what I have here, right? In the center of the cow, in the white area, I actually have an open fill. So how does Illustrator deal with the open fill? If you try to color it, it creates a straight line between the first and the last point. That can be a problem. So if I go and grab this line right now, and I try to give it a white color, that's what it does. That's not going to work, right, guys? So what can I do? What else can I do so I don't have to do everything based on closed fills? Sometimes it's kind of frustrating. And it's really hard when you have overlapping, shapes, because then you have to use the layer stack to try to hide certain parts that are kind of trying to follow the other part. You know what I mean? It gets kind of complicated. My point is, if I was supposed to do this white area as a closed fill, I would have to a certain point kind of mimic the shape of the outer path, right? Means there would be a certain point that this line would have to kind of follow this path and then be closed on the side. But how do I make sure that these two paths are identical? It gets laborious. So what I like to use instead is something called the live paint. So let me show you how it works. So you have to select all your paths. And I was explaining to Andy in office hour how if you go on your layers, you have this beautiful little tiny loop next to the layer where everything is in, and you click on it. And now all your paths are done. Cool. Done means selected. Done in terms of selection, right? Now, how do I switch to live paint? One option is to go in here. This is the live paint bucket. I always use the K tool. It's the K key. It's so much easier for me. I don't even have to look at where it is. I just hit K. When you hit K, look what happens to your mouse. It turns into a bucket, but at the moment it has a stop sign. And the reason why is because if you look above that bucket, you see that the fill at the moment above the bucket is none. So what does, by the way, what does that bucket follows? If you look at the swatches, it follows the swatches, right? So the very first swatch is none. So that's what it has. But if I actually use the arrow key and I'm going to move, you see that you're moving also in the swatches. Now I have black and red and yellow, blah, blah, everything you want. And you can move down and, you know, go to brown. You can do whatever you like, really. I'm going to go with brown. Now, if I go with brown, and now I have a nice, beautiful chocolate brown, and I click on here, now it's filling this path. And then I can fill this path and whatever else. Now, let me show you, though. I know because I know myself. Look how cool this is. But I know myself and I know my settings. I have preferred settings. I have my custom things in Illustrator. So there is a tool called Live Paint. There is a part of the Live Paint that is called Live Paint Settings or Gap Options. You need to find it under Object, Live Paint, Gap Option. I have by default large gaps, but the default is actually generally small gaps. So if you're trying to do it in your computer, you'll see that when you go in Live Paint, after you have everything selected, you hit K, and you go in there with the brown, it actually fills the whole head. And you're thinking, wait a minute, how is that in Enrica worked so much better? I'm going to say Command Z. Because Enrica, by default, is always there, this large gap option. So I know that I can fill the large gaps. Now, some of you might say, what is she talking about? Which gaps is she talking about? Let me zoom in. This is a gap. Do you see that? Do you see that hole right here? When I dump the color on that side of the cow, right there on this side, this is considered a large gap. So if my default is a small gap, obviously the color is going to spill onto the white. That is not going to be cool. It's not going to be good. So I recommend that you potentially, if you can, have the large gaps on just because it makes it a lot easier. And then once you have the large gap on, you hit K and you choose your colors and say, okay, for example, I want this one to be brown and this one to be brown, but I also want my nose to be pink. Now, I did not honestly prepare good colors, so you got to forgive me about that. So the nose is going to be quite pink. Oopsie. And then I'm going to choose a white and make it white. And why don't we make the nose kind of nice, a green color? I mean, we're artists, aren't we? You get the picture here, though. It's very easy to color when you use Live Paint. You don't have to worry about much. You create these outlines, and then you go in and populate it with beautiful colors. Now, you might tell me, how do I populate with beautiful colors that the swatches palette gives me these kind of so-so colors? They're not cool at all. So obviously, you can pick a color. You can go in and say, oh, I need to find the pink for the nose of the cow. And the pinks are up here. I'm going to go in here, and that's kind of a good color for the nose of the cow, for example. Let's say you choose this one. So how do you bring it into your swatches? Illustrator has this gorgeous, gorgeous, amazing, super fun mode of operation since Illustrator started, 25 years ago, and it's called drag and drop. So whenever you want to do something, the very first thing you should think about is, what if I click it and drag it? Oh, done. It's in my swatches. Am I cool or what? So I can go in right now. I can go back into my Live Paint here and say, I'm going to put a nice pink because that green did not look good. Sorry, Enrica. So you get the picture, right? That is really easy to add colors. But also, if you're kind of the type, let's say you're not an artist, you're a different major, and you feel nervous about colors. Colors are not easy for anyone. Even after 20 years of design, they're hard. They're hard means I'm always kind of trying really to get the right colors and to develop a great color sensibility. Now, remember, I was an interior designer in San Francisco, and I was picking colors for incredibly beautiful public buildings. So I practiced and I still struggle with colors because they're great, but they're complicated. So one thing you can do is go under this options in the swatches and choose swatch options, or actually the best is open swatch library. Open swatch library allows you to choose which swatches you want. So for example, you can say, you know what, I'm going to go with neutrals, or with, you could have even patterns, by the way. Well, let's go with, oh, let's try scientific and choose. I don't know if you know what colors. This is really, you have to know colors well to understand this. Complementary are not going to really be that easy to use. Oh, look, I had neutral open. Look how that's pretty cool. This would be a good nose for the cow too, by the way. In fact, it might be the best nose for the cow. Anyway, here is a landscape, neutral, complementary. You get the picture, right? Once you choose under this swatch library, you can pick whatever color you want. And you could even make your own custom color. And I think I don't want to go further today. I'm going to show you next class how you can make your own colors, a color palette you really love through a different tools, a beautiful app that is by Adobe called Color, in fact. And then you can export that color combination you made as an ASE file on your desktop. And right here, you can load it in Illustrator. And all of a sudden you have in your, just like you have swatches here, you'll have your own. And you can call it Enrica or Sarah or Andy or Sasha, Cole, whatever you want to call it. So I will show you that next time, just because I want today really to get to see your work in project one, because we're still getting there and it's due on Sunday. I want to help you as much as I can. But I thought this would really help you when it was time to color your project one, the parts that requires color, or even the parts that is black and white. If you're using black and white like negative and positive space, this light paint might be really a lifesaver or a nice shortcut. Do you guys have any questions?
I was wondering, I thought that when I looked at the color options, you can also create your own in Illustrator using like a color wheel.
Yeah,
is that true? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, maybe I went too fast. I apologize. You can go in here and right here. I mean, honestly, this interface, this color picker, to go in the preferences can look many different ways. This is the default.
Right.
But remember, you can pick any color in here. Say, okay, let's say I want a purple, a really nice purple I'm going to use for something, this kind of eggplant purple. You can say, okay, then you can open your swatches and drag and drop. And all of a sudden you got it, is right there. Do you remember last time I brought in that weird, pinkish color that is on the nose of the cow? So you can definitely make your own color on the fly like that. Now it's harder in Illustrator to make your own color palette. That means a set of 5 or 6 colors. You can do them one at a time. That is why I want to show you how you can use Color. That is a different app though, that allows you to even pick an image. Let's say you found a beautiful image like this cow, and you want to sample colors from this cow. You can, in that interface, you can bring in an image and it will by default grab 5 colors from that image. But then you can kind of move around the pointer and pick a different one. And eventually you'll find yourself with these 5 colors that are derived from the image that you're tracing. So that's something that I will, if you want to, I can put try to find a tutorial online and place it on Canvas. In fact, I'll do that. I don't want to necessarily right now take the time to show it to you because it's not indispensable. You can actually pick, like you said, your own colors in Illustrator, and it's actually good practice. Also, I really want to see your projects. I feel like if I can help you with the sketches, we should be almost there at this point, but I still want to take a quick look and make sure you're on the right path.